Concept artists are often the first step in bringing an idea or script to life. You may not know it, but most of your favorite films, shows, and games all started out in the visual development process. Today we are here to recognize this year's Concept Art Awards recipients. My name is Robles, and I have been asked to tell you a little bit about myself and how and why concept art has been so instrumental not only in my career, but also in my life. I am best known for creating 2 animated series, one for Nickelodeon, which is Fanboy and Chum Chum. The other is for Netflix, which is Glitch Text. Now, my success story is not one that came overnight. I'm now entering my 26th year in this industry, and let's just say that I grew up in a time in the late 80s, early 90s when gang violence was definitely at its height. Now, as much as I loved animation, I just didn't know how to get into this industry, and teachers just didn't know how to direct me into this industry. But luckily for me, I went to college and was studying law enforcement when an instructor caught me doodling all over his test. And luckily for me, instead of getting punished, he actually introduced me to his sister-in-law who worked in animation. Now, about a month later, I actually started working on shows such as the original X-Men, The Tick, Street Fighter, and some other great shows of that time. So even though I didn't go to an art college, you could say I was taught by the best. I was taught by industry professionals. Now, while I was there, I learned about concept art. And one of the first people to really kind of mentor me in this industry was a man named Carlos Huante. Now, Carlos Huante is definitely known to be Hollywood's top creature designer. And because of him, he was able to introduce me to such great artists as J.C. Leyendecker, Dean Cornwell, N.C. Wyeth, and he really sat me down to teach me about not only how great these guys were as masters, but he taught me about stories, the stories that were in these illustrations. This is when I started seeing beyond the pretty pictures and understanding that there was story behind these paintings. Then I got even more curious and I went down the rabbit hole of discovering a whole slew of new artists. I mean, guys like Chuck Jones and his graceful but dynamic, funny drawings, right? And also guys like Jack Kirby, and understanding that there's stylization in these great comics that I used to just read and just kind of go over. But now I was understanding them in a whole different way. And I would start seeing their sketches and understanding the process of conceptualizing these ideas. But then the one that really got me was Alex Toth. Now, when I discovered Alex Toth, not only was I like, hey, this is the guy who did all those great cartoons I used to watch, but when I started seeing his drawings, that's when it all opened up to me. I was like, oh, this is how this all comes together, these ideas. This guy sketches them out, thinks about it, figures out these worlds, figures out what they're wearing, figures out what kind of weapons they're using, the powers, everything that they had. I was like, there's a process here. And once I started digging into those, I discovered his presentation work. With these presentation pieces, I started to understand, oh wait, there's a process here. This man puts these stories and these concepts together, and Joe Barbera would go out and pitch them, and next thing you know, you had a series. That's what I fell in love with. I was passionate about learning how to take story and how to take these characters and these worlds and put them into a concept that really made sense, but not only just made sense, but resonated to the viewer as they would look at these presentation pieces. And that is what really motivated me. So in my 20s, when I started working at DreamWorks, I got quickly into development, and that's what I started doing, is creating presentation pieces and listening to writers and listening to how this all came to be. But I was also surrounded by concept artists and looking at their ideas and putting all this together, the origins of what makes these projects what they become. From the smallest sketch to the most polished piece and everything in between, I love concept art. And I have plenty of art of books, like we all do, and every page is just as exciting as watching the film itself. But let's not forget, it's these small sketches and these small ideas that bring these things to life. So I just want to thank you all for listening to me, and I hope you all continue to conceptualize your futures the same way I do.